Yo, what's up? What's up, Discovery? All right, so it is. We can try it again and again. Try to do this in about a half an hour. Not make this entirely too long. All right, so if you look under textual analysis, this says it's actually due April 2nd. Like if you want to turn it in tomorrow, work on it. You're sitting at home and you're trying to figure out what to do. Call of Duty has gotten a little bit too boring. Yeah, do some homework. All right, so again, this is going to be like the other ones with like just questions for the murderers, because again, that doesn't necessarily factor into Macbeth's character arc, right? So it's not going to be a part of the larger essay. So like always, I try to schedule these so that you can, later on, you're going to be recycling these, right? All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to, I gotta talk louder. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to basically deal with this toggle right here that says April 2nd, all right? So you're going to hit this and you're going to come down and you're going to see those links there. All right, so you're going to take care of those links there. So I'm going to click on mine here. So I'm going to click on mine and you're going to come down. Now, with this, you have the text itself, you have the videos I've left, you have the online version, which I'm going to show you in a second. That's this down here. You have a place where it says write the essay, and then I put here, right? And then you have essay instructions. This is again so that again we can make comments and all these other things, especially since this is going to go into the larger essay. And also so that, in a time management type of thing. So I know exactly where to go. So I can just quickly go in, edit it, and move on with life. All right. All right. And then again, my essay instructions, like how to write an introduction, how to write a body, how to write a conclusion. All right, here we go. All right, so let's go into the text itself, and I'm going to save this really quick as an online version so that we're not. And this is me modeling, so put model and save. Okay. All right. So for the most part, like, I gave you the films itself. So you go in, you watch really quick, and we're not gonna watch through, but you watch really quick. And for the most part, this is the part where Macbeth sees. So this is the part where Macbeth, like this act. So act 3, scene 4. So this scene is where Macbeth sees the murdered Banquo. Let's go back here really quick. Take a look here. Okay. And then all the way down, scene 3, scene 6, scene 3, scene 4, scene 6, scene 5, scene 4. Right. So this is where he sees the ghost of Banquo, right? And he's talking to the ghost and he's just like, oh my God, the ghost, right? Now, for the most part, this is not all that interesting in terms of like the character arc aspect of it, except for the event itself. So, question that you're answering here, right? So you're getting your pens out. The question that you're answering here is why, and we've covered this already, like when we went over the importance of Banquo several times. We've covered this when we went over the plot. So why is it that he sees Banquo's ghost when he doesn't see anyone else's ghost, right? He's killed, thousands of people as a soldier, and like run them through with a sword. Why doesn't he see their ghost, right? He does sort of hallucinate when he's about to kill Duncan, right? But again, even after he kills Duncan, he doesn't see Duncan's ghost, right? So the answer to why he sees Banquo's ghost is two things, not necessarily one, right? So when you write that in your essay, you should be mentioning what both things actually are, right? So there's two reasons why he sees Banquo's ghost, rather than necessarily just one reason. And again, like we've pretty much reiterated what those two things are. And it goes into, again, Banquo being a non-thesis character, and his relationship to the thesis character is not just one relationship, it's two relationships. All right. Okay. All right. So now we get the nitty gritty. Why is this tab up? Let me close that one. All right. So now we get to the nitty gritty. So you go down here. And again, you're analyzing the following passage. So your analysis goes in the body, right? The introduction is the archetype of why people change or how people change based on the changes in agency. And then the conclusion, again, is some sort of schema connection. That schema connection needs to be a concrete schema connection where you're seeing how archetypal, so can this archetype, which is supposed to apply to everybody, does it actually apply to every situation, right? It can either actually apply, not apply, right? Which means thesis in and of itself is flawed, or it could be a situation where the thesis, part of the thesis applies in some situations and it doesn't apply in other situations, right? And this is one of the reasons why pretty much every thesis has to be complex rather than simple. A simple thesis it's easier for a simple thesis not to be archetypally true, right? Okay, so here we go. You're still watching, right? Yeah, we got 8 minutes. All right. So that gives us 20 minutes left. All right. So, what I also did, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a teacher, and she was just like, one of the things that you can do, and this is, to help out your students, is give them the No Fear Shakespeare, which I do have a couple of copies in the classroom. Now, my problem with the No Fear Shakespeare is the fact that, and as we've seen, even with the summary of, in Wikipedia, sometimes it's a situation where they don't deal with complexity of Shakespeare's language, and this is somewhat of the problem. And we get towards the end of this passage, that's definitely something you should be paying attention to, and I'll point that out. So first one is, and I love this line, it will have blood, they say. Blood will have blood, right? And I think that would be a name for a really great movie. Blood will have blood. And in the translation, there's an old saying that the dead will have their revenge, right? So the blood will have blood. That's a pretty good, if somewhat reductive, right? So it says, it will have blood, they say, blood will have blood. So one way of thinking of it is, yeah, if you kill somebody, and obviously if you kill somebody, there's blood. And then the translation that they give is the dead will have their revenge. But there's also another way of thinking about this. So not every single time, and this is what I mean by complexity, not every single time a person archetypally sheds blood does the person die, right? And that's where the no fear Shakespeare is like a little bit reductive, or by reductive, I mean too simple. Sometimes a situation where it's just like, you're injuring people. You are, maybe even indirectly responsible for, a lot of the atrocities that happen. So another way of thinking of blood will have blood is almost more like a karma type of situation, where it's a situation where, like, if you shed blood, right? It's a situation where you sort of going into that industry of shedding blood, you're pretty much playing with the idea that at some point it's going to turn back on you, right? And this goes back to our previous essay, right? And you should sort of think about that, like where he starts to talk about the snake. So it will have blood. They say blood will have blood. How does that make an inference back to what he says about the snake? All right. And then also think about like how this relates to, so for example, I can think of like several schema connections, especially like I love gangster flicks and stuff like that, where it's just sort of like once a person says, okay, you know what? I'm in this, or once they start to shed the first, once they start to shed their first, life, it's a situation where it's like, at that point, that's their life, right? And so then it goes on to say, gravestones have known to move, trees to speak, and they bring men guilty to justice, right? So he's thinking of himself as being guilty. Okay, so the rest of that is pretty good. And then it says, and we're just going over on this side, so make sure that it's showing. It says it's almost morning. You can't tell whether it's day or night. That's pretty. What do you think about the fact that Macbeth refuses to come to me when I command him? Did you send for him, sir? Right? He says, I've heard about this indirectly, that I will send for him. In every one of the Lord's households, I have a servant paid to spy for me. Now, this is also archetypal. So let's highlight this really quick. So this is also archetypal, where he says, in every one of the Lord's households, I have a servant paid to spy for me, right? So when you think about ruler, like, again, one way of thinking of Macbeth is as a character, and that's in the body, right? But when you move Macbeth to the introduction, right? Just like you move Bartleby to the introduction, just like you move the young man in Little Things Are Big to the introduction, that single character starts to represent archetype, right? And that's the really point of English. It's just sort of like, how do these instances represent archetypal people, right? So in this particular case, he says, in every one of the Lord's household, I have a servant paid, and he says, I keep a servant feed, right, in the actual text. So how does that represent this type of ruler, right? So he takes over, and then what's this line saying about what these rulers do when they take over? Right? And then he says, I will tomorrow and betimes will to the weird sisters. Right? And then the no fear says, tomorrow I'll see, while it's early, I'll go to the witches. This is huge. I should see this statement in everybody's essay. All right? Tomorrow, while it's still early, I'll go to the witches. All right? And this definitely, putting it in blue, speaks towards agency at this point, right? So you should be making a mention of it. Don't quote it, right? But the fact that he does, so you can paraphrase it, put the line numbers, and then the fact that he says this, right? What does that mean? That's the more important thing in terms of agency. And he says, they will tell me more because I'm determined to know the worst about what's going to happen. And then he says, my safety is the only important thing now. Which is in the no fear, for my own good, all causes shall give way. Right? And again, this goes back to this idea of scorch the snake, right? But didn't kill it. And then he says this line, which I actually put in the title because of the fact that really this is like one of the most telling. He says, I have walked, and I'm going to highlight why am I highlighting that? I am in blood, stepped so far. Should I wait no more? Going is as tedious. So should I wait no more? Returning were as tedious as going o'er, right? And then no fear says, I have walked so far into this river of blood that even if I stopped now, it would be as hard to go back to being good as it is to keep killing people, right? So what does that mean in terms of agency, right? What does that mean in terms of comparing himself in terms of character arc, right? Because, how does this statement compare to that person at the beginning of this play? All right. So this gives us 10 minutes left. And then he says, strange things I have in head. He's thinking about strange things that will to hand. He's thinking about doing, which must be acted out. They may be scanned, right? I have some schemes in my head that I'm planning to put into action. I have to do these things before I have a chance to think about them, right? So thinks about them. So there's still, even though this is the falling action, even though he is given himself up to the villain, the monster, the demon, right, inside of him. And this is really important for pretty much a good villain of any sort, right? This is one of the reasons why everybody loved Killmonger, right? No person is completely that, right? So when you have a villain that is a complete flat character and there's no morsel of good or, they tend to be unbelievable, right? There's something in our brain that goes, okay, But when you have a complex, you have complex emotions, which I think often we all do, in a situation where like that rings a little bit more true of actual life. All right, so he wants to just go. He's like, okay, I got to kill more people, and I need to go ahead and do that, and not really think about it, right? Because if he thinks about it, he's going to regret it, especially at this point, because after, obviously his conscience is trying to do something, after having seen Banquo's ghost, right? And I use that word conscience as a later hint here for those people who have been still rocking with this. All right, so that gives us still 10 minutes left. All right, so she says, you lack the season of all nature's sleep. She says, you haven't slept. Yeah, that's not a good translation. So when she says sleep, that's actually, right? She's actually giving him a command, right? When she says you lack the season of all natures, right? She's talking about like everything that he's saying at this point. That's a reaction to that. And he says, come, will to sleep. My strange and self-abuse is the initiate fear that one's good heart use. And he says, yes, let's go to the street. My strange self-delusions just came from inexperience. Okay. We're still just beginners when it comes to crime, which is an okay translation of it. But he says, but we are yet but young indeed. I think the inference more so when he says we are yet but young indeed means we still have a lot more to do. I mean, what you can kind of get from their translation, we are beginners when it comes to crime. What he's really saying is we're just getting started, right? A lot more bodies are going to drop, before we're done, right? Okay. So really here, it's more so about like this sort of downhill, and let me, there's not but one of them where to keep a servant feed. It's like this downhill motion that basically like keeps going, that he set in motion himself, right? Okay. So, so again, you're going to analyze, go back through this, go back through the video, analyze in the body. The introduction again is sort of what archetype is being described here, right? And then also think about in the introduction, this idea of setting something in motion, right? And the amount of agency that one has once one sets something in motion, all right? And that will be due on the 2nd. And keep in mind also that we're doing a, completion grade thing here. So part of your completion grades is like drafts, edits, submissions, resubmissions, all these other things. As long as we're seeing, and this is pretty much, I think I speak for everybody, as long as we're seeing like you putting in the effort, you putting the activity, you putting the thought in, which is the only way that we're going to see that is through your writing, right? Then it's a situation where you're, you're getting credit for those, for the effort. The other thing that I'm doing is, so hopefully, no, we'll definitely be done with this by the 8th, which is, when your official spring break is. From the 8th to the 20th, for the most part, I will be posting things, but these are not necessarily assignments. This is for going forward after the 20th, just to prepare, like maybe hopefully, by that point, the Corona thing will be over. But if not, like, I want to be prepared for it. So that's one of the things I've been doing, is sort of revamping a lot of the curriculum, in preparation for the fact that this might be an online thing, which means that I had to augment a whole bunch of stuff. So we will be, but this will be dealing with the character arc. You will be sort of be able to sort of recycle your information here, and yeah. So hopefully you are healthy and you're happy. Hopefully the people that you know are healthy and happy. I got I think about 5 people that I know of have passed away in the last week. So this is a strange time. So be close. Other than that, be close to your loved ones and take care, folks. Bye.